Right, thank you, sir. Right, let's start my countdown timer, which of course is written in PowerShell, but might come back to that if I've got time. So welcome everyone. Today I shall be talking about fast and efficient Windows troubleshooting via something called PowerShell, not to be confused with PowerPoint. So without further ado, just a quick who am I? whoami.exe/groups is very useful for checking group memberships, by the way, but I'm jumping ahead somewhat, and that's not very PowerShell specific. Not going to read this stuff out, but I've been a developer for 5 decades. Yes, I know I don't look old enough or sensible enough, and doing this PowerShell stuff for a mere 10 years, which is only a fraction of, well, not a fraction of the time. It's probably about 50% of the time it's been around. And that's what I do for a living. I do PowerShell pretty much for software vendors, but do have services available as well, should you want to avail yourselves of them. Okay, so there's 2 parts to being fast and furious. Oh no, sorry, that's a film. I could make this into a film, I suppose, but let's not bother. So it's knowing what to run and when, yeah, and so on. But also, the efficient and smart use of PowerShell itself, because there's no point thinking, oh yeah, there's this great command, but how do I find it? Oh, I've got to go and look up this blog and I've got to copy and paste. And yeah, so I'll show you sort of 2 things here really, which is a lot of the stuff that I use in my troubleshooting work, and also how I use PowerShell quickly and efficiently, which hopefully you'll take away from this. And the slide deck, which has got lots of links in it to various scripts and other bits of knowledge, will be made available via that thing called Twitter, or X as we're supposed to call it, after the presentation. Okay, so let's talk about using some PowerShell and demonstrate, more importantly, because listening to my voice for even 40 minutes, let alone 44, is probably a bit dull. Okay, so the key here is to reuse and recycle, as in, you're not making anything up from scratch, or if you do, you only have to make it up from scratch once. So we use one of the key things in PowerShell for efficiency, which is that of our persistent history. So if I bring up a PowerShell window, which I'm struggling to find on my other monitor, even though I checked they were all there beforehand, let's bring up one here. Okay, so maybe boost the fonts up slightly to make them visible to those of you at the back. Oh, I'm not in a live audience, am I? Oh dear. Well, I hope you're not dead anyway, but let's not go there. So what do I mean by persistent history? Well, what we can do, you're used to being able to cursor up and so on in CMD, and I was going to say VBS, but of course VBS we can't use interactively. PowerShell we can use as a scripting language to have scripts we execute, but we can also use it interactively, which is what I'm talking about today. But I will show some scripts as well where basically you've got too many commands to hit in one go, so we'll put them in a script. So I've done the hard work for you, or other people. There's plenty of other good troubleshooting stuff out there. So let's, for instance, think I want to run something. In fact, let's run to a different, let's run to an admin one. So some junk I've previously done. But what I want to do is I know that I'm going to do some performance monitoring, and I'm going to use some stuff built into PowerShell, but I can't remember what the commands were. So what I do is when I type the command in initially, or when I copy and paste it from a web page or Pastebin or wherever else, some links to my various source of scripts and one-liners in the slide deck, then I do a search, and I do that search thanks to a module built into PowerShell called PS Readline. Don't have to worry yourself about it. It's enabled automatically, unless you've got a screen reader, which I found this week. I just hit Control-R, and we can see search there already. And people who know the sort of Linux will go, Control-R, yes, I can search in the shell, shell there, which is where this has come from. So I now think, well, something to do with perfmon. So I'm going to search perfmon, and it's brought up this rather long and perhaps scary-looking command line, which again you wouldn't need to worry about knowing how to. And I'll just hit enter because it's going to take a while for it to start churning out data, because I've got a 30-second sleep in there. But again, don't worry about understanding the command. That's the key with this, is once you've got some commands that you put in, wherever you get them from, you can then find them in your history. So your history is persistent. So if we pop over to another window, in fact, let's start a new one because I'm in Windows Terminal here. As you can see, I've got various things, even including a legacy command prompt. And then we can see what the history is set to. So for instance, if I do a get ps read line option, it tells me what my history file is. As an admin here, I've not actually got it hooked into OneDrive, but as my normal user, because I log on as a non-admin, being a sensible and cautious type of person, then that's actually saved to my OneDrive. But we can actually see how long my history file is in terms of commands, simply by doing a get-ps readline option. See, now PS readline's also helping me here in saying, oh, rather than even me searching, it's saying I've done this for you before, and I just hit the right cursor and it puts it in for me, shows me there. So what I can also now do is GC, get content, built-in alias. Aliases are great for when you're using on the command line, but don't use them in scripts because it makes it much more difficult to understand what's going on. So you would put get content in, and I'm going to, because I'm far too lazy to count these things, let's see how many commands I've got in there. So I've got 8,145 commands in there, and that's not just since I last booted my laptop, which was only a couple of days ago thanks to some Windows problems, but this is over the life of that particular file. And because I've got a persistent local profile here, it's probably since I've had the laptop, which is about 18 months. I'll say for my normal user session, so if I switch back to that one and do the same again, history, save path, get content, measure. Oh, look, it's there already. 37,000 gems of PowerShell. Probably not 37,000 gems, probably errors and other things. But the point is they're all searchable. So the key with what I did before, which hopefully started to produce some output now. Yep, so it started. So this is poor man's, well, not even poor man's perf, not poor man's control up, should we say. So I'm monitoring one of my Hyper-V servers here in my lab with this command. But again, I didn't have to type it in from scratch. I typed it in once. It's I've tweeted it, and it's also on Pastebin. But what I did when I typed the command in is I added this bit on the end, a comment. So what does that do? That tells me that I can search for it, because if you remember, I hit Control-R and search for perfmon, and that just found it. So hash character, I use 2 hashes, just my style. You've got style guy? Yes, I have, thank you. But I tend to use 2 hashes for comments, but 1 hash is good enough, and put something that you can search on. Yeah, so I didn't need to remember that it was, well, I got perfmon in there anyway, because that's what I call it, even though it's strictly not perfmon. But this actually uses get counter under the hood. If we actually look at what's doing the bulk of the work, is a single PowerShell command called get counter. But I didn't need to remember that. I just remembered perfmon. So really what I'm doing is indexing my commands via comments, and then I can search them later on if I need to. So that's what I meant by the history. It's great, powerful. Oh, and prove on here that I use OneDrive. And we can see it's in my OneDrive, my business OneDrive. So that backs it up, and I can also use it across multiple machines as well. So by searchable breadcrumbs, that was what I meant by the comment on the end of the line. So the comment is ignored, as anything after a hash is, and we can just put whatever search time you think you're going to remember in there. So here then I'll put find me, but that was what was perfmon in the last example. Yeah, I didn't get the animations quite right, but I'm okay with PowerShell, not so good with PowerPoint. One of the things that not many people seem to know about, I mean, I was teaching one of my colleagues yesterday about it, is control space. Control space is like tab completion on steroids. So you all know about tab completion, I hope. So if let's Control L to clear the screen, by the way, saves having to type CLS. So for DIR, for instance, and I want to know what the command options are, then I can tab through them, but what were they again? Control space, look at that. Not only does it give me a full list and that I can see in one go, but it's cursor navigable. So I'm now moving my cursor across with the arrow keys. So the ones on the right here are standard ones you get on all PowerShell advanced commandlets and functions. The ones on the left here are specific to DIR, which itself is actually an alias for get child item, because that's not necessarily obvious to people coming from a CMD background. Notice I didn't say DOS, because a CMD prompt is not a DOS prompt, hasn't been for decades. But it also shows us the type. So look at the bottom here. That says it takes a string, but the square brackets means it's an array, so it can take multiple paths. So I could do a dir path. So I just hit enter on that option. I could say dot, but I could also say /temp. And of course I can tab complete paths. But in fact, I can tab complete more. I can also do control space on paths. Look at that. So I type P, control space. Yeah, so that matches anything with P in the folder that I've typed. So again, I can move along here to these particular folders and do my command, and I can control space again if I want to, as well as being able to hit file. So if I want to have a look in here, what scripts have I got in here? I can do star.ps1, control space, and I haven't got any scripts in this folder, which is a bit strange for me, but oh, okay, let's have a look. That would be in my scripts folder then. I've only got one script in there. Not a great demo, but that's the thing with live demos. Who needs recordings? So control space is fantastic. Even when you're in PowerShell IOC, it'll do the same. Get help, fantastic. It'll tell you, what the commands are and give you a bit more information on them. Or you can just actually, for any PowerShell commandlet that starts with get, you can actually just type the word on its own. So I could just say help dir, even if it's an alias, it will work it out. The best way to do it is actually to do it with -show window. So it comes up in a separate window. Or you can even do it -online. It will take you to a web page to save you having the hassle of using a web search engine or AI to give you the details. You can also set aliases up. So I set one called RTFM, read that in manual, which is an alias to help. Why? Because I like the odd amusing thing, believe it or not. Get command, get module, fantastic for exploring what you've got. So let's say, for instance, I want to see what commands have I got that might do something with certificates. I can do a get dash command or its alias, GCM star certificate star. And I could either do that and it will show them all, or of course I can do control space, but here it says there are 256 different possibilities. So I probably don't want to list those out all on the screen. Yeah, but we want to get more specific because again, PowerShell follows a structure of approved noun like get, set, new, remove, etc. We can see on the screen. So what I could do is what commandlets are there that get certificates? Then you can see there's quite a few across lots of different modules. On the right here we see, so I've got some VMware modules installed, I've got some Microsoft Graph, some Azure modules. So across multiple modules we can see, and I can limit it to specific modules if I want. Again, by giving it a -module argument on here. So that's how I can explore what's available. I can also see what's available module-wise, so I can say get-module list available. If I list available everything, it'll show me everything module that I've got locally installed. If I need to install a module, I don't necessarily need to go to a website. A lot are available through the various repos. I can just do a find-module or an install-module. This is looking through all my module paths, so it's a little bit slow. I'll probably come back to that one in a moment, given that time is precious here. The start commands with the parentheses, I've shown a couple of times already and not necessarily explained what I was doing. Here we see the output of all those modules, so you can see there are quite a few. Things like I've got the VMware Power CLI actually consists of lots of sub-modules, but again, we could pipe that through Measure if we wanted to count how many there are. But if we go back over here, the reason I say put things in parentheses is so that the results we get, because PowerShell works on objects and returns objects, we can then start looking at the methods directly without having to type multiple commands in. What do I mean by that? Well, let's have a look at, again, I'm going to tab complete. There just happens to be some file in there. As soon as I put the dot on there, I can now, guess what, control space again. Yeah, you see, you don't have to remember anything, which is brilliant for people like me who don't remember things, or at least I don't know if I don't remember things because I forget. And it shows me what's available on the results of that DIR or get child item. Yeah, so I can look at things like the creation time, but then I can call methods on the creation time. Yeah, so I could say, for instance, I can pass it to a one of the methods, or I can just say, what year was it? I don't want to start parsing dates. Yeah, so that file was created in 2024, which is why I've put the parentheses around it. So I didn't put the parentheses around it. Notice I'm there doing, you probably don't see it because you can't see my keyboard, hopefully, unless you have my camera. But I'm doing control backspace, which again is mentioned in the slide. So I delete a whole word at a time. Again, I'm going to do control delete a word forward. Oh, perhaps I didn't mean to delete that. Guess what? Control Z, yeah, and multiple levels, control Z, yeah. Control Y to redo, yeah. So all the stuff you're used to, you can do again. But if I did the dir, I would then have to either assign that to a variable, D, again, $D you wouldn't use in a script because it's not meaningful, but we can use it in immediate mode here because we're going to throw the results away effectively. Then I can do .d creation time. So you can see why we put the parentheses around it. Just again, I just always automatically when I type PowerShell is to start with parentheses, because if you don't need them, dir, let's have a different file. If you don't need them, it doesn't matter. You don't need to delete them. Yeah, because the parentheses just will put in an expression, and that expression just evaluates. So that's no different to, oops, I didn't mean to do control delete there. Control D, delete. It gives the same results with or without the parentheses. So just always start with parentheses. Yeah, it will save you time, believe me, from somebody who does this stuff all the time. And set your window titles either in the scripts that you're running or manually via the console title. So I can say console, if I spell it right, of course. And again, I just tab complete that. I don't have to remember it. Equals guys lousy demo, close quotes. And there we go. We can see at the top here. So if I'm going to different windows, so if we go back to my admin ones where I'm running, you see I've got different ones. So I've got the perfmon because I did that in my title. I've got remoting to different machines. We'll come back to those later if we have time. So it's easy for me to find them. And also if we look at other terminals I've got open, you can see I've got certain scripts running, like I've got that clock which started in my startup group. So I title it. So it's easy to find those windows if I need them. Okay, let's actually, because I want to actually get into some troubleshooting before I have to finish. So I'm going to sort of reel through these and then just demonstrate them. Measure command can be used, and I've seen people use it, but it swallows the output. What do I mean by that? Well, let's see how long it takes to test network connection to something that doesn't exist. So Fredo doesn't exist in my domain. So what I actually tend to do is this when I'm troubleshooting. So date is actually short for get-date. Remember earlier I said if PowerShell commandlet is a get type verb, then you can actually use it without the get. PowerShell will look it up. Fortunately, doesn't go for the set by default, because that might be a bit nasty. So we can see it failed, and we can see it took from 1910.17 to 1910.20, so about 3 seconds, because we don't know what the milliseconds are, to do that. Now, I don't actually need to do that, because that's built into the history with PS readline. So if I just do an H for history, so it is get-history, which is this, but it is also an alias for H. You can see it actually shows me those commands. Now, by default, it doesn't show me the start and execution times, but I could do an H ID 10, it'll give me that. But if I then pipe it through format list, FL, or select star to show all the fields, all the properties, we can see that it started at that particular time and finished at that particular time as per the date. So if I wanted to look at, oh, what time did I run that dir? Because I didn't put date, semicolon is just a continuation character, and semicolon, I don't know what time I ran that, but if I just do an H ID 3, then I can see, yeah, it was at that particular time. Why am I saying this? Because a lot of the time, for instance, for this testnet connection, it might be that I'm actually testing a particular port. So let's, there's me not searching. So let's say GRL DC12, and then, but with testnet connection, which we'll come on to if we have time on the networking troubleshooting slide, I can also test port. So in the old days where we used to use the telnet binary, testnet connection, or TNC for short, will test a port for me. So I can see, is port 443 alive? So we can see it actually does it in using progress. So it's actually using its wrong IP address. That's on a different network that it can't actually route to. So this will fail. But the advantage of this is that we'll then see in the history that we can see exactly what time it started, what time it finished. So if we need to cross-reference it to event logs or log files, or anything like that at all. So this is the output from the testnet connection. So it gives me details about how it resolved, whether it worked or not. But from the history, so I can also, if you want to look at the last command, you can see just with minus, you just give it minus count of 1. Yeah, so we can see that. So if I'm coming back an hour later and say, oh yeah, Dave being the network guy, of course. I don't know why I picked a man, could have been a woman. Then you say, well, what time did you do it? Oh, I think it was about 12 o'clock. You don't need to know that. Yeah, you can have a look explicitly at that command. As again, we saw it was H-ID 16. Look at all the, well, in fact, remember what I said about type in parentheses, which I've been failing to do. H-ID 16, then dot start time. Yeah. So we can say, oh yeah, it was 1912:33. This is British summertime. We use the term summer loosely, particularly as it's dark outside now. But then they can cross-reference it to their logs, of course, but making sure that if that was in the same region, it was the same time, but it might be, again, this is one of the things you need to check. If you're familiar with the IIS logs, then, oh, guess what? IIS logs are always in UTC, Universal Time Coordinated, which is the time zone that we in the UK use 6 months of the year, but we don't for the other 6 months of the year. So sometimes that can mean your script break or your troubleshooting breaks for 6 months of the year because you weren't using local time, you were using GMT but didn't realize it, which is fun. So this is why I say use get date, because it can tell you, when you did something cross-referencing, but also how long it took as well. We can do a, how long did something take? Well, I can do, in fact, let's do this. H-ID 16, slightly inefficient, but who cares? I certainly don't. End execution time, yeah, and that actually does a date time comparison for us. So that between the start and the end time, it was in total 26.1 seconds. Yeah, so I didn't need to wrap measure command around that. And I can just look in history, although that's only any use interactively. If I do this in a script, then I'll do start equals get dash date, do your command, and then you do a $end equals get dash date, and then you can just do start minus $end. Okay, I definitely want to get on to some actual troubleshooting. Outgrid view is a great way to see data, but we can also export to CSV, and this export CLI XML. It's a not very nice format, nothing to do with XML, is very nice. But what it does is maintain the object structure. So it's a great way of sharing data. So if you've got some data on from one of your machines for a particular vendor, let's say, you can export it to CLI XML, send it to them, and they can import the CLI XML and they'll have exactly the same object structure, which you don't get if you use CSV or JSON or something like that. Use a jump box with all the modules installed. I mean, most of the stuff is here on my laptop, but that's because it's kind of in a home lab. Otherwise, have a box with you can IDP into with everything installed. We've already seen me use measure, again, because I can't be bothered counting things. I'm too old in front of that. Oh yeah, if you start typing something thinking, right, what I need to do now is I need to copy this file, copy C colon Windows to D colon or C colon slash, oh, I haven't created Fred yet. Right, rather than deleting the line, I'm just going to go home to go to start a line. I'm going to do MD, short for make directory, Fred. And then I can go back to that line, home, delete. Yeah, C colon Fred. And there we go, it's done it, which is good. Yeah, so you don't have to delete it or control C it or whatever else or copy and paste it somewhere. You just put a hash in front of it. I'm good at making a hash a lot of things, really. And use AI, of course. AI, yep, it's like a search engine on steroids, but don't always believe what it tells you, particularly if it's something which is non-passive. It's going to delete or change stuff. Check it in a lab or sandbox environment as much as you can. Now onto some sort of minutiae, which I'm not going to go through individually or demonstrate because a lot of them I've already talked about. This is how you move around the command line quickly, how we can do stuff without having to resort to calculator, to output hex, to convert hex to decimal, or this last one, convert 1, 2, 3, 4 to binary, which of course people like me, because we're so sad, can do in our heads, but hopefully you people with a life don't do that in your head automatically. Use a clipboard a lot, particularly when you're doing stuff in remote machines. You want to get some data and you want to get it locally to analyze it or save it. SCB is an alias for set-clipboard. GCB is an alias for get-clipboard. Yep, so we can put things into the clipboard and get them back. How much data is in the clipboard? How long's my machine been up? Yeah, again, notice how I'm using the brackets here. Again, a very simple one I use up quite a lot. In fact, I think I've got an alias in my profile to give the uptime, or at least see what time boot was, because I can see if a service has started at boot or whether it started at some point afterwards, maybe. Okay, right, let's actually get on to some troubleshooting stuff in the last bit of the session. Again, these slides will be made available. So now I've shown you how to be efficient with PowerShell. It's right, okay, so what are we going to do with that PowerShell? Now, one of the most useful things we can do is look at event logs. Now, nearly 30 years ago when I was doing MCSE exams, then the answer to the question a lot of times, look at the event logs, but back then we only had 3 or 4 event logs. Now we've got, how many event logs have we got? Well, let's go and count them, yeah? In fact, let's do this elevated, just in case there are some which I can't get at. So I can do get-win event log minus list log. Oh, and we see we've done it before. So how many logs are there? I reckon there'll be, 465. I was going to say over 400. So that's how many different event logs. Do you fancy searching all of those manually with Event Viewer? I certainly don't. And Event Viewer, as it says on this slide, is a real pain. Why? You can see one event at one time from one log. That just makes it so much harder to troubleshoot. So first of all, we look to see what providers are interesting. What do we mean by interesting? Well, I mean in a technical sense, not the sort of at parties sense of interesting. I wouldn't start talking to people at parties about, I might do. Who knows? I'm a sad old man. So let's see, I want something to do with power. So let's have a look at list providers. So providers, there are multiple providers and they will write events to one or more logs. So I don't know why I started typing that. It's because I can't multitask. So we'll list provider star. Let's have a look for anything to do with power. Yeah, a lot of information. Let's pipe it through format table, FT, and we can see what sort of things there are, because it might be I'm trying to do with some weird power management issues. For instance, I can see what events providers there are. So how do I get the events for that event provider? Well, the easiest way is I can say provider, and if I do control space again, notice provider name, if you look at the blue at the bottom, is a string array. So that can take multiple providers. Now, I don't necessarily need to know the names of the providers that I need. So I could say star power star. Yeah, so that will go and search all provider names, including PowerShell, which is probably one I don't want. But again, this is just a quick way of showing things. So I can see get win event. Now, notice it's now done them across multiple providers and not stitched them into a single timeline. Yeah, so normally we'd want to look at something for a given timeline. So let's do that in here. So what we're going to do is decide what properties we want to see. So we're going to see, given I do event log stuff pretty much every day, I kind of know these off the top of my head. So we're going to set select time created, ID, provider name, and message. Yeah, so I just Control-C that because it's quite a lot. So we can see now it's stitched them together time-wise. But it might be you don't know which particular provider, because how many providers are there? Well, let's have a look. This provider. There are going to be more than the number of event logs. We get some errors. I don't know why. There could be permissions on event logs or whatever, but there are over 1,000 different event providers, which makes it better for filtering stuff, but it increases the size of the haystack that you're looking for that needle in. So what I bring you there is a script I've already written, which has been mentioned a couple of times on Twitter this week. If you're not following me on the Twitter, the X thing, Twitter in the tech space is alive and well and pretty safe and still got good information in it. I put stuff out daily in terms of PowerShell troubleshooting, interesting registry keys and values, the occasional dad joke. Okay, I'm sorry about that, but it's a good source of information, and it's also what I use for my knowledge base. What we've got is something called Event Aggregator. So again, I'm just going to search for, if I type it correctly. So we can see I can search on a particular machine for particular events. I'm just going to hit enter. That's a machine in my lab. I'm running this as a local admin. Actually happens to be a domain admin. So that's going to search all event logs across that whole 2-minute period from 11:51, because a user might say, oh, I logged on this time, or you might find from a query user what time they're logged on as or logged on at, and you're looking for clues as to why they had a problem. Yeah, needle in a haystack time. Rather than having to look at event viewer in each event, I've got all the things in here. Now, it might be a case of, well, I don't think they were doing anything in PowerShell at the time. This is a grid view, by the way, built into PowerShell. So any command you do, you can pipe through out-grid view or OGV, which gives us the ability then to sort and filter. So I can say, okay, well, I'm not particularly interested in any provider name which has PowerShell in it, because PowerShell's dull. So I'm not very useful. tongue-in-cheek, obviously, because PowerShell is immensely useful when you get the hang of it. So now that's filtered out automatically all the PowerShell stuff. But what I can also do with the event aggregator script, because it includes info events as well, I can actually say mine is bad only. And what that will do is only show me event IDs, with critical, warning, or error, so that it will get from that particular machine on that. And this will take a number of machines. Yeah, so you can see I've only actually had 2 bad event log entries written in that particular time frame. So they were errors from WMI. What errors they were, I don't know, but I'm not looking for a specific problem. It was just happened to be the last command in my history, which was showing that script. So event logs, yeah, wealth of information in there. We can filter with a hash table. Again, a hash table is like a dictionary, and people go, "Oh, hash tables, I don't like those." Again, you just find an example of the query you want or similar, change it to what you need. Let's go back to not my lousy demo, and let's have an example of one I've prepared earlier. So if we look for filter hash. So this is, for instance, how I search for a particular, I'm searching 55 minutes back. I don't know why I searched 55 minutes back, but I did. Using the current date and time, I could have used get-date, all control providers on a remote machine. What other instances of filter hash table are there? Let's have a look. Some kernel power, and I'm looking for a specific event. And again, this is showing you how we filter left as far as possible. Because what I could do is, just get provider from all of that provider or whatever event log it puts its events to, pipe through where object, where ID is 142, but that is inefficient because it would get all the events in that particular provider or log. So we have this phrase, filter left as far possible as you can, because it's just more efficient. It gets less data, uses less memory. It's going to be faster. So let's go back over here. Oh, let's get rid of you as well. So hash table, you only need to use it once. So I've got a lot of examples in my tweets and in my paste bins and my scripts. So you just copy and paste them from there once, put them in, maybe put a comment on the end. Remember I said about leaving breadcrumbs. We can remote them as well. It's particularly useful if you're using server core, which I use a lot because of the lower overheads and the lower attack surface. But of course, you then can't run GUI tools necessarily on those. And that's a link to the script I just showed you, which brings all the event logs together. And you can filter on and look for specific words or usernames, event error messages, anything you want, all in that grid view. Or you can take it into Excel and bring it via CSV if you want. Process auditing builds on top of Windows event logs. So if you've seen process auditing, it creates, I'm actually going to show Event Viewer now, mainly because you realize how difficult it would be to otherwise look at the events. So if we go and look at security events, we'll see a lot of 4688 and 4689 events. Now, I don't know all event IDs for all events off the top of my head, but because I work with these a lot, you'll see a lot of 4689, which are processes terminated, and there should be somewhere a corresponding 4688 event, which gives us a lot of information, including the command line, because we've got process command line auditing on. So be careful, because this will then, if you've got passwords in clear text on command lines, which are a security no-no, but sometimes you can't avoid them. It will go into security log, but security log by default is only readable by local admins. So what I've done is written a script which will then show, pull those events together. So we can search for, hopefully, get process durations. We can say something like the last, let's say 2 minutes, rather than I didn't implement months because I didn't think people want to look that far back, but it does take days. And this stitches those event logs together. So that script, again, which is on my GitHub repo, link is in the slides, will give you a link to this. So it's great for all sorts of troubleshooting, whether it be an EUC logon timing issue, whether it be a security issue, whether it's one of those, oh, look, a CMD prompt has popped up, but I don't know what it was doing and it's disappeared before I could look at it. Yeah, that's all the sorts of things that this will show for you, so we can see who the user was, what the process was, the full command line, warts and all. So it would include passwords, who the parent was. This is quite important. Yeah, who ran that? Why did they run it? Don't worry too much about some of the other fields, but also when it started, when it ended, what the duration was. So that gives us a nice sortable field. We could look to see what the slowest things were. So that's when I'm analyzing a logon. It also tells us the exit code. So an exit code is 0, which you think, oh, that's binary false, so that must mean fail. No, error 0, exit code 0 is error success, which means it's good. Error 1 is something went wrong. Something like that is generally an internal Windows error. So in this sort of scenario, it generally means something's crashed. And I've actually added extra bits for security auditing to this as well. So where's that executable actually come from? So we can see whether they're signed or not, as all X's should be. Although recently, if you may have seen some Twitter threads, last weekend, the Windows 365, so the new remote desktop app, doesn't have a signed binary, or it didn't, it does now, but the trusted root isn't signed. So process auditing, I enable it for all my customers on every machine, whether it be a desktop machine, whether it be a server, because it is so useful for spotting anomalies, troubleshooting issues, efficiency. There's a summary mode for this. So I could say summary for the last 15 minutes. This is how I found that Visual Studio Code is launching Docker every few seconds. I've killed that off for the sake of the demos, so that I've got some decent performance. I'll come back to that one in a bit. Oh, look, no, actually it's come back quite quickly because I've killed it off. There's not been that much, so I can sort on executions. So background task host, now I've sorted on executions, was the most called executable. So there's not been much going on in the last 15 minutes because I've been prattling away on here and running rapidly out of time, as my clock is telling me. So we'll crack on. The clock is also useful, by the way, because if you want to make a note of when something happened, I said put date in front of it. The clock in its normal mode will, you can click the mark button. So this is, and you can then put some text in and it will mark the exact time. So you can say, oh, what time did I click on this button? Or what time did that message pop up? So again, process auditing is invaluable. Remoting, MSTSC is frowned upon, so we can do remoting via a number of different methods, which includes Windows remoting, WinRM, which is secure. You can make it run just over HTTPS. Or with PowerShell 7, you can use SSH, which is known to be secure. But when you're remoting, you can only remote as an admin by default, which is good. Again, a nice security layer. So if we look over here, for instance, here I am remoted into my domain controller, which happens to be server core. So what I did was I entered a PS session, which is a PowerShell session. Now, in PowerShell 7, you have minus hostname, and that tells it to actually use SSH. That's actually showing my SSH banner, but you can also do it with a computer name prior to PowerShell 7. So this is PowerShell 5.1, and that seems to have hung, but again, that uses WinRM remoting, so I don't need to set up SSH. Use PowerShell 7 where possible, because it's generally faster, it's more feature rich, particularly in terms of things like REST APIs, if you're calling those. And it's also got for each parallel. So if you're trying to do stuff in parallel, let's say, oh, I'm going to read the events from 20 machines. If you run them 20 in parallel, and each one takes a minute, that's 20 minutes. If you can run 20 in parallel, you can probably take only a couple of minutes, because a lot of them will run in parallel depending on the number of cores available. And if you share the same history and have the same client folder, because getting it, as it says here, getting access to UNCs, oh look, my countdown timer has expired, so Eric's going to be shouting at me very soon to finish, so I will be a good boy and do that. So I tend to use the same script folder on all the machines, make sure the scripts are are there because accessing UNCs through PowerShell remoting generally doesn't work. So if I want to access, the $C share of something else through a remote session, it won't work. So I copy my scripts locally to the same folder across all machines. So because my history works locally, even if I've executed a command on a different machine, I can just change that command without even having to access the history of that machine. The last thing I was going to talk about was WMI, or now it's called CIM, but I won't. I will put the slides out there. And there's also a link to my YouTube channel where there are various talks where I've gone into detail on some of these other things before. You can't do Windows troubleshooting and fast and efficient in 45 minutes, which is a bit of a shame, but that's kind of it, really. Eric, are you there? Have I got the timing right? Should I shut up or can I carry on?
You can carry on for 5 minutes if you like, to 40, and then we're going to just pass it straight up. I don't mind,
okay.
Skip it with break.
Yeah, I can't see people's faces, which is a good thing for the remote session. So if you jump in and tell me when to shut up, I will carry on to overwhelm people with even more knowledge and wisdom that I've probably got from Twitter or the web. So WMI, yeah, there's a huge amount of information out there. As in 800 plus classes, a great way of getting information. So, we can look at something like, let's clear the screen. So I'm going to do, there's one I prepared earlier again. So thanks to PS Readline, it's showing me in that slightly grey font that that's available to me. So I'm just going to hit the right cursor, and that tells me when I booted up. Yeah, so I can see how long have I been up for. In fact, let's do get-date. I don't want to confuse you with .NET. Let's not type it but wrongly. So how long has my system been up? It's been up 2 days and 18 hours, which isn't long for mine, but yeah, it's more usually crashes that or hangs that bring it down. You may not have noticed, but this is actually an ARM processor machine, but everything is pretty normal on it. You'd be hard pressed to notice it's actually running Windows ARM, and I'm actually running Windows ARM version of PowerShell. And we can have a look at the environment variables. How do we do that in PowerShell? In fact, the easiest way to do it is that way, because it's like a drive. There are built-in drives, so I can access the registry or certificates as well as the file system through these PS drives. So I can do, I can look at the registry without having to go to registry editor. Look, there we go. There's a command I typed previously, so I'll just use that. Oh, yeah, that's, let's have a look at star name FT. Oh, and I've picked the wrong name. Let's pick display name. That would be more useful. So this is just looking at the registry, and I've picked a name that doesn't exist. Well done, guy. Fantastic live demos. Yeah, perhaps we should have finished. Anyway, so back to environment variables. So you can see here I'm on an ARM processor. Hey. But anyway, back to the WMI and KIM or SIM. You can see what other things there are. Let's not do that. Control home, delete the start of line. Again, it's just showing you the properties that are set for the default display through the PS1 XML file. If we want to look at everything, we can pass it through format left star or select star. I tend to type FL because I'm too lazy to type select, and I usually typo it anyway. So you can see there's a whole manner of other things which are there. So quite often when I've got nothing else to do, then I'll start exploring what classes there are in WMI. So we use WMI now rather than we use CIM rather than WMI because from PowerShell 3 onwards, WMI was kind of deprecated, although it's actually even there in PowerShell 7 now. So if I'm interested in what classes are available, I can say get-class, get KIM class. I don't want that one, thank you. So let's see what there is to do with power management or power generally. So it will go through and show me what there is to do with power, but that's in the default namespace because there are other namespaces as well. What are the namespaces? Well, fortunately, this is where control space or tab complete comes in again, because I can say minus name again. And look at that, I can control space the actual parameter to the argument, or the argument to the parameter even. So these are the namespaces that are available. So I can then search these for, let's have a look, let's see what's in security, for instance. Get Kim class namespace root security. And lo and behold,
That'll be the last one, right?
that'll be the last one, of course. It's always the last one. So we can see what interesting classes are there within that particular namespace where I might want to get things. Yeah. So this is a great source of information for troubleshooting. And there are specific providers for, there's one for SCCM, Citrix, VMware, lots of third parties have their own, and it's a great way of getting extra information out of it. And the next subject we would have talked, that's a great script. It's I wrote for my control up customer, friends. So you can actually see what's going on with WMI under the hood. If you've got high CPU WMI processes. Yes, I'll shut up now.